Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Upzone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your two hosts. I am Tisha S. Waddell, former city council member for the third district in the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Mr. Elmer Floyd, former House representative for the 43rd district in the state of North Carolina. Good morning, Mr. Floyd.
Good morning, Madam Waddell, and thank you for the opportunity to allow me to share this half of the podium with
Thank you also for allowing me to share this half with you. I'm excited about our program today. We've got a jam packed program. But before we get started, what's new in Mr. Floyd's world?
you. Well, you know, it, I'm somewhat pleased, Teach, because the weather. Well, no, I'm not pleased because this week we're having, some nice temperature, and my phone keep ringing, so I just wish that the temperature would drop some. But
Yeah.
according to PwC, I wish that it stayed the way that it is. And I ask you that you receive your light bill. When
Not
you
yet.
receive your light bill, you might want to get you some tarnish.
Get me some who?
Tarnish.
What
Never,
is that?
never mind. That's not in your world. You just leave that over your light bill very carefully. This,
Okay.
when you open it. Okay,
I
open
need
it very.
somebody. If y'all know what that is, what Mr. Floyd just said to me, y'all tell me later because he's not gonna tell me now.
No, no. I mean, because really, I mean, but it expected, because of the cold,
It was
weather.
so cold. It was so cold.
Yeah,
And that's why, Larry has the HVAC company. And we were telling people if you can avoid trying to heat your house to its normal temperature, avoid it. Because, first of all, you're going to overwork your unit.
hmm
Secondly, you're going to pay out the butt for it because most of us were running off of emergency heat because it was
yeah.
below 30 degrees outside. And that emergency heat is the most expensive form of heat. So when you guys get your light bills, don't go hollering at PwC. This is all on this is on God. This is about his weather. But Mr. Floyd, I did see that PwC was considering raising their rates. So there's that.
Now, now don't forget. Now, I believe it. The last year they raised it 4%, 2 and 2.
Hmm.
So this time that they're going to raise it. Well, help me to understand this before we go on announcement. What's the difference between 13.45% and 14%?
5.55%. 0.55%.
I mean, so really
but
you're
that
telling me,
0.55 but that 0.55%, Mr. Floyd, adds up.
yeah,
That's
but
like
you
saying
might
what's the
well,
difference between $13.45 and $14? And if you got thousands and thousands of people, that 0.55 cents adds. I mean, yeah, it adds up.
okay, because I get confused too when I go and get my gas, it say $2.69.9
Nine
percent.
nine nine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but anyway, that's how it is, Keith. But hopefully
We
that,
have a very full news cycle. Yeah, today
huh? Which one
we have a full news cycle today.
we do?
We do, but I want you. But I'm
And
not.
then we go
But
to
I'm not
announcements.
rushing. I'm not. No,
No,
I'm not
no, no,
rushing.
no,
I
no.
want you to take your time with our announcements because I'm just excited because sometimes we have slow cycles, but this is not a slow cycle, Mr.
Well,
Floyd.
Keith, before I go into my announcement, this is like history
It is.
month, and sometimes we don't pay homage to those persons who paved the way for us. And it seems like back then we accomplished more as minority in leadership than we do today. So just let me announce just some of them, not all of them.
Absolutely.
Now we had a person
Absolutely.
like Bill Bowser, which was very active in the community. Scipio Bergen, which was the NAACP icon. Then we have Tom Baker that served on the County Board of Commissioners. We had persons like Mary McAllister that serves on the Board of County Commissioners. Then we had persons like Dr. Eldridge of Fairfield State University. We had members like, and you probably don't know her, but you served on the council, Ida Ross. And then we had
I've heard a
Raymond
lot about
Shipman.
her.
We had Raymond Shipman, president of the NAACP. C.R. Edwards was the pastor of First Baptist Church and also a NC House Senator. Ted Kennedy, which serves in the North Carolina House of Representatives. And Tom Council, who served on the school board for a long period of time. Floyd Shorter, which was a minority economic person. Then we had Luther Crenshaw. Then we had a person like Moses Matthews. And then we had a person like T.W. Brown,
Don't forget
which
his
was
wife,
the,
because she picked up the mantle
yes,
when
yes.
Mr.
And
Moses
she has
died.
it, and she has expired. But let me just pay homage to those persons. And then we have two forums. We have two meetings tonight at 6:30. One is a candidate forum, which is at Crossroad Church, which is on MacArthur
Before
Road.
you, Mr. Floyd, before you move right into our announcements, I want to say one thing because I think a lot of people don't know this. I know that Miss Ross was very instrumental in what we see when it comes to the skate park over there downtown. And I will say this, Miss Jensen has taken a lot of credit for that skate park, but the idea originated with Ida B. Ross.
Well, and she was really, when I was the human relation director, she was a strong supporter of mine with the neighborhood resource center, which was a one-stop center at that particular point in time. Wherein that what we're communicating with today, many communities did not have it. So she was very supportive of those individuals coming into the center, utilizing the center computer network in order to seek
She
employment.
was the original Parks
Yes,
and Recs queen. She was the
yes,
OG. Yes, ma'am.
yes,
Yes, sir. Yes,
yes,
that was the one.
yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Now we have two meetings tonight at 6:30. One is at the Crossroad Church, which is a campaign of commissioners, at large, and also District One.
Are
And
you
then
going to be
that
going to that? That's on MacArthur Road at
no
Crossroads Church.
teacher, I have seen forums and participated in forums, and I stopped by the bait shop and cast my rod out there in the Cape Fear River. So
Yeah, I have to count I have to count the hay that's in the chicken's house. But I'll tell you this, Mr. Floyd, I probably will listen to it while I'm counting the hay in the chicken's house. I want to
well,
hear
thank you.
what's happening.
Share it with me if you don't mind. And then we have the school board community meeting, which is going to be at the Cliff Library at 6:30. And then we have J. Cole that's going to be at the Crown Coliseum on September the 6th. I'm sorry, September the 23rd, with tickets go on sale March the 26th. So you got to get there early. And then again, we have the Dogwood Festival, the latter part of April. And I want to give Dee Harden a message, a shout out, because she had 700 wins and she had coached at E. Smith girls basketball. 700 wins. That's remarkable. I can't even get one win in basketball. So I commend
Yeah.
I commend her. So those are the announcements. Oh yeah, I can share with you. The Martin Luther King Committee met on Monday, and there were some very distinguished city persons that was there throughout. I mean, while the meeting was there, a portion of the meeting, then they left.
Okay.
But it was the Martin Luther King Committee, not the board of directors. My
Okay.
understanding that the board of directors was extended an invitation to participate, but they did not show up. But
Okay.
the committee, as I mentioned to you sometime in the past, the committee is like the city manager. It's handling the day-to-day operation. And if the board of directors does not give them any funding or any direction, then they are non-functional. So
Okay.
they can meet, but they cannot carry out any function. So I suggested to the chairman of the committee that a meeting be called of the board of directors, which the bylaws say that they must have between 5 and 15 members, and from some members there's one or two active members, to suspend the bylaw rule so in that they can nominate board members from the floor, so in that the organization can move forward. But right now, the committee can meet and meet and meet, but the authority still lies in the bylaws with the board. So some
Mhm.
kind of way they got to convene the board of directors to have a call meeting to elect at least 5 members, and then whatever need to make the adjustments in the bylaws can be made so that the board can move forward. But I doubt very seriously that they take that up. That
Okay.
included. That's it, Madam Waddell.
Okay, well, today we're going to be going through several topics. We're going to talk about the attendance crisis at Cumberland County Schools. We're going to talk about the Murchison Road renovation of some of our low income housing. We're going to talk about the city's failed fire station, state lawmakers, and tax property growth. And we're going to talk about the infamous $600 million, 600 million, right?
$600 million school bond issue.
Bond, yes, sir. So let's get started first. No, you're good. I'm easy.
Okay.
I'm not stuck up like that.
Okay.
Let's start with this public housing overhaul, Mr. Floyd. So essentially, what this is talking about, there was an article in, pretty sure it was in City View today, and it talked about. It was also in the Fayetteville Observer, and the city unveiled their $26 million plan to rebuild public housing. Mr. Floyd, the city of Fayetteville is seeking this $26 million for the Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The plan is to demolish and rebuild 2 aging public housing complexes along the Murchison Road corridor. And if awarded, this plan would replace 60 units at Murchison Townhouses and 110 units at Elliott Circle. Both of those sites are near the Fayetteville State University campus.
May I just pause right there?
Sure.
Why are you gonna tie this close to Fayetteville State University? Okay. If you look at the distance between the two, they're not Langman Street. Okay. They're up by Hood Avenue, and one is all the way up by Hardee's and McDonald's.
So your question is, why is the article tying this to Fayetteville State University?
Yeah, Fayetteville State, they're not close.
Well, you know why. You know why, Mr. Floyd.
Okay. All right.
But the Fayetteville City Council has authorized staff on February 9th to apply for the grant, which kind of caught them by surprise because Chris Colley indicated that they did not expect for this to be opening up essentially at this time.
May I pause again?
You sure can.
Is this the same one that made the presentation to Catalyst 1? This is the same
Catalyst Site 1?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And as you recall now, and we are talking about 2 separate sites, but we are talking about a related process because as you recall, Catalyst Site 1 is intended to bolster the application for the Neighborhood Choice Grant. So the whole purpose of them wanting to do the development.
I don't mean to cut, but
no, you're good.
That was supposed to be for mixed development, that site.
No, yeah, absolutely. We never expected to get a proposal for low-income housing at Catalyst Site 1. Okay. That was a surprise to most of us in the community. So because they're going in and replacing low-income housing, under HUD's rules, public housing must be replaced on a 1-to-1 scale, which means that every existing unit that is replaced has to be replaced with a unit that is similar. So if it's a 3-bedroom, it has to be replaced with a 3-bedroom. Households have a guaranteed right to return. Rent remains capped at 30% of household incomes for those people who are going to be utilizing the low income option. And there's a phased relocation plan during the construction, which is proposed to take, I think it said 8 years. It's an 8-year phased redevelopment.
Years.
Right, which is interesting. Which is interesting, Mr. Floyd, because the project on Grove Street, I don't recall it taking 8 years. But this is a similar, when I read through this, I said this sounds very similar to what we heard with the project on Grove Street. So with that in mind, Mr. Floyd, what are your thoughts about this? Construction could begin if they're awarded as late as 2027. I mean, as early as 2027.
But please, I know these 2 conversations are not related, but I don't want this project. I want the community to have more information about this project. As an instance, who is going to develop the project? That's number 1. The construction of the project, number 2. Who's going to manage the project? Number 3. Is it the housing authority or a private developer that's going to manage the property? For instance, if it's the housing authority with a private developer there, that private person that manages it has a lifetime guarantee of 100% occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, they're going to employ a staff to manage that project,
Mm-hmm.
and that's also the maintenance. So sometimes, we look at building community wealth without knowing how we built the community wealth, and then the community don't know whether Mary James and Tom, Dick, and Harry are all related. So the community need to get an understanding of that process.
And it's
So
interesting that you say that, Mr. Floyd, because we're definitely interested in that. We want to know that information. But some of the people who are at the meeting are quoted as being more concerned about their housing situation because one of the so while those in attendance, some of those in attendance did acknowledge that these units are in poor to fair condition, that and they haven't probably been renovated sufficiently as they were built in the early 70s or late 70s, in the 70s. But here's the thing that people sort of expressed some concern about. Their concerns were, how is this transition going to be handled for the residents, like the people who live there? And then some of the people who live along the corridor expressed concerns about volume, which was interesting because you would think that one for one would mean volume would remain the same. However, because of the condition of those properties, many of the properties are vacant, which creates a hotbed for criminal activity in those areas because you've got a lot of vacant units. And Mr. Floyd, what happens when you have housing that nobody's living in? It attracts the wrong element. And so what they're saying is, well, when you redo these, they're likely going to be filled up. And that's going to create volume along the corridor. And how is this going to be sustained when the corridor, because of segregation efforts, many decades ago, because of those segregation efforts, the corridor is still struggling to support the citizens that live along it. These were the concerns that were expressed by those in attendance. Now, Mr. Floyd, I found that interesting. I found that very interesting because there was a myriad of conversations that were happening. And I just wonder if the city is taking this information under advisement and coming back with some strategic answers, like you've said, and really giving some information to these people along the corridor that are asking the questions in order to make sure that their concerns are addressed.
what is when you look at it, you have to look at the, the process. I think that one, and you mentioned, if the person moved out and they have a 3 bedroom house and they get a voucher to move into a single unit house, there is a raising cost for that family in order to maintain that single house, wherein that single unit, wherein that at the present level, the housing authority does it all. So when they
Mm-hmm.
move out into the public, uh, they're going to have to maintain that yard. So they're going to have to buy a lawnmower and all this other stuff to go along with that. Even that teach they talking about before, they mentioned that the community does not have a, a fresh food market. Okay, that it does not have a drugstore, it does not have a bank. But we talk about a
Well, and I push
changing.
and I push back on all of that because, Mr. Floyd, the reality is the landscape is changing for all of those things. So when it comes to fresh food, many people are using delivery services. And I don't want to hear let me tell you what I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear, well, poor people can't afford delivery services. That is not true because the vast majority of people, that is not true. I'm just going to say that. I'm not even going to get into the rest
Well,
of it. But
well,
secondarily, banks are closing, Mr. Floyd. Brick and mortar banks are going by the wayside. They're becoming a thing of the past. People are now opting to bank online. Many of these institutions, so a lot of the infrastructure that has traditionally been strategically located in neighborhoods in this age is being outsourced to the online infrastructure.
well,
So
that's
because of
good
that,
too.
those are not, yeah, it's not, I don't
But
think
they're
it's
still
good.
part of
I
it. I
don't
mean,
think it's good.
they're still a part of a community fabric. Whether
But
we,
not but the reality is not so much anymore. Now
uh,
I
I mean, I,
think, yeah, not so much anymore. I think it should be. I agree that it should be.
mm.
I think you should have grocery stores near your home. I think you should have institutions that you can walk in and it's like cheers, you know them and they know you and they greet you by name. I think those things are important. And I think the more we shift to this online infrastructure, the more we lose the fabric of what makes a community a community.
Well, and you also got to take in consideration too of that community. The North Carolina Department of Transportation is planning a makeover of that area. Instead
Right.
of having a 4 lane a road going through that distance there, they they have shown you how it would look like with tree lines. So
Hmm.
you're going from Spring Lake to 6 lane. You're going from the city limit to 4 lane to Hardest on Burkeson Road. And then from Hardest to Rowan Street, you're going to 2 lanes. And so
Right.
that's down where the townhouse is located at. So we're talking about a changing of road infrastructure. That's the long range
Hmm.
plan now. So,
Right.
but I think that that the community need to get more information about the process,
Absolutely.
not just about the grant itself. Now, remember the last grant I think was $46 million. So if they're able to get the $26 million, they still $20 million below what they projected that it would take to do the one. I mean, the combined project. So what the community gonna have to wait again for is for the city to apply again for another grant.
Well, no, I
Now,
think that what would then happen is you'd start seeing some of those the funds that were set aside for the bond. I think that you would start seeing some of that come into play. I have a question for
what
you,
you
Mr.
mean?
Floyd.
What you mean? I mean,
Because
now they
remember,
gave.
housing there was a part of the
Yeah,
bond
yeah.
that included housing.
It was a $12 million bond, and
Hmm.
Calendars One already got $2.5 million
So
of
you
that
got about
12 million
10,
dollars.
potentially 10,
You got
about
about
10
nine
left.
five. You got about 9.5 million. So you still
Right.
$21 million
Short.
from short. I mean, so it's all look good. Now I hope we talk about this other bond issue that may affect the people.
We are, but I got a
Okay.
question to ask you about this right fast because you mentioned why did they type Fayetteville State? I want you to tell me what this means. A quote from this article said the area once supported a thriving network of Black owned businesses, including grocery stores, nightclubs, beauty shops, and mom and pop stores. Integration led many of those businesses to relocate. By the 1970s, drugs and disinvestment took hold, and the stigma has persisted. What does that line mean where it says integration led many of those businesses to relocate? What does that mean?
We'll teach.
Do that mean that as the community integrated Black folks in that area took their businesses and relocated them somewhere else?
No, the business, many of them just vanished. You know, many of them they just vanish. And then again, when you really look at how a community deteriorates, if I can say to you about annexation, when
Hmm.
annexation takes place, what we boast about is that we boast about emergency responding, police, fire,
Hmm.
and garbage. Okay, an area deteriorate based on code enforcement. That's how an area deteriorate. It's based on code enforcement that you do not imply code
Yeah, and you've been
enforcement.
very consistent about that. You've been very consistent about that. I know since the
Yeah,
time we've been doing this podcast, you have consistently communicated that.
that's how an area deteriorates because of
Absolutely.
lack of code enforcement. So when
So
you
we don't
really,
so can we agree that we neither of us really knows what that line means? Because I didn't know what that meant. And if somebody else that's watching knows what that means, can you explain that, expound on that to me? Because I don't know what that particular part, just the part where it says integration led many of those businesses to relocate. I want to understand that because I know, for example, in Greensboro, where there once was a thriving Black bus line, when integration occurred, Black folk decided now that I'm allowed to ride on buses that traditionally were only reserved for white folk, I'm gonna ride their bus because I can now. Versus I'm gonna stick with what's been sticking with me, and and that caused a lot
wow,
of those bus lines to go out. Those thriving businesses went out of business because now people had the choice of I can keep rocking with who've been rocking with me, or I can take my money and go give it to these people who didn't want it anyway, and they chose the
Tifa,
latter.
when you really look at it, even today, a lot of business that's in the minority community were not owned by minorities. You
But
know,
then they
as it,
were. But then they were.
but But again, T, a lot of them. I mean, for instance, there was a store that was Horn Grocery Store. There was a bourbon barber shop. Right up the street from there, there was a Jack Phillip store, which was a white-owned store. Then you had V Point, which was a white-owned business. Then you had I think it
But you
was
had
the
Pay Funeral Home, which was a black-owned business.
which was
Um,
a black-owned business. Okay,
mhm.
so what I'm saying that a lot of then you again you
What's
had
Miss Lady's name that used to have the Christina Washington had a drugstore along the Murchison Road corridor at one point. She had a
I think
pharmacy.
I think hers was on Rowan Street, but there was a drugstore not on Berkson Road,
It
but
was
it was a
that
William
her
drugstore.
drugstore was near V Point, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't
Okay,
it? I
I'm
don't
not
know. You tell
sure.
me. But I know
Okay,
at one point then she moved into Bronco Square. But I'm saying all that to
okay,
say a lot of the stuff that we have issue with, some of this stuff, and this is why I say we need to be accountable ourselves too, because a lot of the
sure.
the problems we've created for ourselves, even though we are a part of the problem in our own community too.
hmm What
So I'm gonna
what is
I'm gonna say that, and then
you
you
know?
can you can you can tell me when you're ready to
I
go
tell
to the
you.
next subject.
Okay, if you look down Murchison Road, if
Uh-huh.
you look down Murchison Road and go 2 blocks east or west, and if you look at the number of churches, okay, that collect their tithing and their offering on Sunday,
Do
they
churches pay
deposit.
property taxes, Mr. Floyd?
No, mm-mm,
They wait,
mm-mm.
wait, wait, wait.
What?
Let me ask the question again. Do churches pay property taxes?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah. Now they do pay sales tax, and some of them, they get
So if I want to
reimbursement.
stop paying property taxes on my house, I just need to have it registered as a church.
If you want to, then again, they'll probably tell you that you're not in compliance. Okay.
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 I do
Okay.
operate a Bible study every Wednesday out of my home. So I mean, does
Well,
that does
no,
that
no,
qualify me?
I don't think so, Tish.
Okay, go
Uh,
ahead, because I don't want to
no,
belabor that. Go ahead.
no. But when you look at the overall thing, as I mentioned, is that you look at 2 blocks east and west, those individuals that collect their tithe and their offering carry either on Ramsey Street or Bragg Boulevard. So within 24 hours, that money is out of the community.
Yeah, we used to have
Okay.
a black owned dry cleaners on the Murchison Road
Yeah.
corridor. So I mean, I'm just gonna stand by what I said. I feel like there's a lot of
Okay.
truth to that. But let me ask you this, Mr. Floyd, because while we're talking about the dollars and cents of it all, Mr. Floyd, do you realize that there's been a total reset and the city has ordered that the failed $9.4 million proposed Fire Station 4 project be torn down completely?
Well, teacher, I saw the. Well,
Which
let
I
me ask
knew
you a
this
question.
was coming.
Let me
Go
ask you a
ahead.
question then. I believe that every construction that is being built, they have I think it's a general contractor, and then they have, I got the word now, but they have a person on site that's a site manager
Hmm.
that sort of manage that see and
Well, according to
overlook
these,
the work.
right, and
Okay.
according to, well, before we hit on that, please don't forget, Mr. Floyd, because that's a very important point. But let me bring our audience up to snuff about what we're talking about. So essentially, we are making mention of the fact that the city of Fayetteville entered into a construction deal with, well, the city of Fayetteville, the Fayetteville City Council voted unanimously to demolish the unfinished fire station 4 on Bragg Boulevard after a forensic investigation concluded that the building is too compromised to repair safely. A 57-page report. You know what's interesting, Floyd?
Hmm?
What's interesting is the city of Fayetteville spent like
Oh,
$4.3
$4 million.
million.
Oh, that's all,
Now let
T.
me,
That's
but
all.
follow
That's
follow what I'm
all.
getting ready to say. Follow what I'm getting ready to say, and I need the people to hear this because I want you to compare apples to apples. The city of Fayetteville actually spent $4.3 million, not proposed, actually spent.
Yeah.
The county, how much had the county spent up to this point on the proposed center that was going to
Look,
be downtown?
I think it's somewhere like 40 million, somewhere close to the neighborhood.
Okay. The county spent they spent that much? They spent up to 40 million already?
They spent money in preparation site and also architect, and which they're being
But was it
sued
40
now.
million dollars?
Somewhere between $30 and $40 million.
Okay. But the point
in
still stands. My point
infrastructure.
still stands. So they spent that. The city spent 4.3. The county had, let's just multiply. That's by what? That's 10, that's 10 times. They spent 10 times more approximately. 9 to 10 times more. The county's report about their project was how many pages, Mr. Floyd?
I forgot, Chief.
1,000 pages.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was
yeah,
over 1,000 pages. Why is this report only 57 pages? How thorough is this report? And we've not read either of the reports, but I can only imagine that whoever put together the county's report was more detailed, more thorough, much more invested in getting to the bottom of whatever they needed to get to the bottom of than was a 57-page report. People in school write 57-page reports for classwork. I would expect more from a $4.5 million loss. But I digress, Mr. Floyd, but that is interesting to me. So ABS, so a 57-page report from Applied Business Sciences, also referred to as ABS, attributed the structural and installation failures entirely to former contractor WB Brawley. ABS told council members that there was and I can't remember the name of it, but you said it just a moment ago, but somebody who goes on site to check and see what's happening. And they are reported to have done that regularly. Okay. So ABS is saying the city did everything they were supposed to do. They had people going out, checking, doing all the things. Well, only one of the council members is mentioned in this article as saying, well, if that's the case, how did we get so far down the road with all of these problems? Which I appreciate Antonio Jones, Councilmember Jones, for saying that. Here's what triggered me to say is more to this story. Mr. Floyd, there was an exchange that took place between the new Tisha Mario seat holder. And I'm calling him that because whoever actively and aggressively challenges the mayor on his BS is going to be the person that we say fills the role of former council member Mario Benavente and former council member Tisha Waddell. So in that regard, Sean McMillan and the mayor had an exchange, which there's a clue in this. First, we had the person, Steve Moore from ABS, saying, in over 17 years of work in this area, this is the direct quote from the article, I have never recommended that a partially constructed building be torn down, Moore said. However, it is our opinion that the extent, severity, complexity of potential reviews of the identified construction related issues warrants this recommendation and implies ABS serious concerns about this building. That combined with the fact that they're saying, but at every step of the project, we had somebody out there checking, somebody was checking. Then Sean McMillan is quoted as saying, I would urge us to get things out of private session and out into the public. I think it's time to be transparent, fully transparent with the public about what has happened with this project. That's interesting. Then he says not only what's going wrong with this project, but how we get to success. That's Councilmember Sean McMillan. Mitch's response was, I think him, ABS, giving this detailed report on the good, bad, ugly is as transparent as you can get. That's the mayor's response. To which Councilmember McMillan responds, Mr. Floyd, this is what triggered me to say there's more. To which council member responds, do you remember what he said?
No.
He said, unfortunately, there's more. Unfortunately, there's more. So I say to the Fayetteville City Council and to the people of the city of Fayetteville, what more? Tell us what more. What is the more? Because you guys, y'all have a consultant who just got y'all off the hook outwardly facing with their little flimsy 57-page report in comparison to this 1,000-page report that the county did with their project. What's more?
But Tish, let me say this, and I'm gonna go back and come back.
Okay.
You know, if you're supposed to build a wall.
Uh-huh.
That's a brick wall. And concrete is supposed to be inside of the center blocks. It don't take no rocket scientist to see that if you on site. Okay. If you on site, it takes no rocket science. Now, if you pour a concrete slab and it's supposed to be cast iron instead of PVC, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see between PVC is normally green or white. Cast iron is always black. Okay. So you see the difference. So you got a construction person on site. Now, let me fast, let me backtrack you to my beautiful parking deck that caused me to lose some weight. Because I had to run upstairs, go to the fitness center to get my energy to go up the stairs to park my vehicle and then come back down. The city allowed that company to build the parking deck with a promise that they're going to put an elevator in there. Looking at what the county did, and the county was going to spend $144 million to comply with ADA. So the city went years without complying with ADA. Now with this new venture about a 7 stories on top of the existing parking deck, you know what the city's going to do now? Spend
Install
5 points.
install the elevator
Now install the elevator, which they could have did it years
from
ago
jump
and let that
and just
part be
sued
part of the settlement.
install the, they could have installed the elevator and then sued the company that didn't do it to get their money back. But here's the thing, and I don't want y'all to forget that council member Benavente asked this at his last meeting. When does our right to sue end? And I'm going to just be real generic with my terminology. I'm not an attorney and I don't remember specifically the words, but he said, when does this all end? When do we need to have a lawsuit filed by if we're going to do it? I believe, do you remember the date? It was sometime, I think, in September, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't recall
I
that.
could I could be wrong, but I believe that it
Uh-huh.
was sometime in September. You guys will have to go and fact check that. But here's the bottom line of it. For some reason, the city didn't sue, but they are going to be installing the elevator. So
At
we
five
and
points,
then
at $5.7 million now to
they're
repair.
also going to be allowing that company to participate in this new building on top of the parking deck that they
Well,
already didn't install. Okay.
but you got to look at it, T. But the person, the company out of Raleigh or Durham, convinced the city to utilize this company. Other words, they found this company to sort of take the pressure off them. And now the city saying that we reserve the right to sue.
but
But I'm
they're
spending
but they're going
five.
to forfeit that right after a certain amount of time. Mr.
Yeah.
Floyd, I think it's so interesting. I just think it's really anytime you hear somebody say nothing to see here, you did everything you were supposed to do. Yeah, you wasted $4.3 million of taxpayer money, and more than that, because now we got to go in and tear all of this down. And bricks are not, they're not lightweight,
Well,
so to tear that
I'm gonna
down is,
find no. I'm gonna find a construction company to do it free.
there you go. Mr. Floyd, speaking of free, it seems
You
like
think
our
I'm gonna
students are,
find one?
no,
You
I
think
know
I'm?
you're not. I know you're not. But speaking of free, it seems there's a number of students in Cumberland County who have a lot of free time on their hands because you know what they're not doing? They're not going to school. So, Mr. Floyd, according to, look, you like that transition? You like how I did that transition right there?
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot to
Mr.
that.
There's a
There's a lot
lot to it. There's a lot to it, Mr. Floyd. And truly, it's not a laughing matter. My transition is good, though. But, Mr. Floyd, here's the reality. According to a recent report, we have a high volume of students in Cumberland County who are not attending school regularly. 1 in 3 students is chronically absent in Cumberland County. That's roughly 33.76% of students. Mr. Floyd, that is an astronomical number. Now, here's what that is being attributed to. I'm trying to get to my notes, so y'all bear with me because I want to make sure I give you factual information and not just the jargon that is rambling in my head right now. Chronic absenteeism, and this data is from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and it references the 2024-25 school year. Chronic absenteeism, defined as missing at least 10% of the school year, has remained largely unchanged over 3 consecutive years. 2022, it was 34.53%. 2023-24, it was 33.48%. And then last year, it was 33.76%. This persistence suggests that the issue is structural rather than temporary. Now, absenteeism is not evenly distributed across student populations. Higher rates were reported among economically disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, American Indian students, and Pacific Islander students. These figures significantly exceed the district wide average. And in 2023 to 2024, some individual schools reported more than half of students classified as chronically absent. And do you know what the schools are attributing this absenteeism to?
Well, yes, a
Mental
lot of
health
them,
and external pressures.
yeah, a lot of the kids come from families in which they have to take care of adults.
And their siblings. And here's the sad
Yeah.
reality, Mr. Floyd. And this is why, if you all recall, during the mayoral campaign, this is why it was such an issue for me to be talking about economic development from the standpoint of bringing in jobs that supported their employees being able to actually support in whole their families. Because what this report indicated, Mr. Floyd, was that health and well-being is one of the issues that they're dealing with. Severe anxiety and depression, students working to support family income, caregiver responsibilities for younger siblings, and general disengagement, meaning they're just in general over school. Now, the only bullet on that list that the council directly affects, and this is for the purposes of our audience, the only bullet on that list that the council directly affects is economic development. That is something that is in the wheelhouse of the council. So when you're bringing in companies like Amazon, or you're bringing in companies, corporations that want to do data centers, we need to be asking the question, how are we supporting our school system through these jobs? Are we bringing in jobs that allow parents to be able to take care of their own kids so that the kids don't have to take care of their siblings? Are we bringing in jobs that allow parents to only have to work one job so that the kids don't have to supplement the parents' missing income? Because those are parts of the reasons that we're seeing this absenteeism. Mr. Floyd, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I think that two things that our city and county lists as priority: more rental units and jobs. So if you can convince them about filling the vacancy of rental unit and jobs, that they are not basically concerned about the average income. They're just concerned about jobs and how many rental units that we can afford. You just have to slightly convince them. As an instance, Teach, I go back to what we talked about Catalyst One. You know, that's more rental unit. Okay. Then we look at apartments. That is going to be in a flood zone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're going to build 84 units in what is known as a flood zone. And on the other side of the project that we have, development that we have on Murchison Road, that's going to be heard at the city council meeting on Monday, it's going to be built in a floodplain and a landfill. Okay, but we're getting 164 units there, and the person that's going to represent them, we feel that we have to speak up for our community, but the person that's going to represent them has a good relationship with council members. Okay, so what I'm simply saying to you is that we want units, rental units, and we want jobs, and we don't care as long as it's a job. For instance, Amazon is only paying $31,000 a year, Madam Water.
Yeah, but the issue with our council is that they want to bring in jobs that increase the tax basis from their perspective, because they're looking at the shift from residential tax to corporate tax, but they're not looking holistically, or at least they weren't. Maybe this new council will be different. They weren't
I
looking
hope so.
holistically at how the jobs actually trickle down into the community to affect issues like this. And this is why, I thought about this morning. This is why you don't need a mayor who talks to you about statistics and about what they've done or what research shows. You need a mayor. You need leaders in a community who have common sense. We need to get away from this model of data driven decision making all the time, because sometimes your data is you live in a community, you've raised your kids in a community, you work in a community, you see how what's going on in the community, and you got common sense enough to know what will fix the issues that are broken. You don't have to spend $300,000 to know if people can work in their community and make a wage that affords them to be able to take care of their family without having to do so with 80 hours a week on the table of their life spent at work. You will bring people home and they can raise their kids. That is a common sense solution.
Well,
So I
Teach, I
think we
tell
need
you,
to stop being bamboozled by stuff like that.
Teach, I tell you, I was watching a program on TV, and the question was asked of this particular person about affordable housing. And what he said, we don't need any more studies about why we need affordable housing. We have enough studies, if you understand what I mean. We have enough studies altogether. I'll give you another example you talked about. This is not related to this. About the three youth that was killed on Rose Hill Road.
Hmm.
The
We
first
don't
thing
need
they
another
said, well,
traffic study. We
yeah,
don't
okay,
need another traffic study.
okay. I mean,
We don't need that.
we're gonna do another study to find out what we need to do
Well, that's
in
just a way of
order
kicking the can down the road and
down the
being
road.
able to um,
Okay,
add some context to why you're doing what you're doing. But here's the truth, Mr. Floyd. I can find data to back any position I decide to take.
well,
It doesn't matter what
that's what I'm
position in the
saying.
world I decide to take, I can find data to back it.
You
Data
just
is
slowing down.
garbage in most instances.
Yeah, I mean, but this is what you do to razzle and dazzle. As your friend, as your friend told you that if you're gonna run, if you had a backbone of an earthworm to stay out, he always say this is another way that people razzle and dazzle you. Okay,
Right.
so but that's the question to you. That's what we want. It's not you know it was just like some years ago we talked about the chicken plant being located in Fayetteville. It was 1,000 jobs, Madam Guardia, and they're paying $10 an hour, and it was costing you $2 plus for a gallon of gas. And 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 the plant was located in rural Cumberland County, not the city of Fayetteville. So if you were doing a disadvantage going to work, okay, you couldn't even buy a loaf of
I talked
bread for
about
now.
that. I talked about how it was cheaper for people to be on welfare than it was to go to work, because when you
Right?
factor in all of the expenses and what you lose by getting a job, excuse me, it's cheaper for some people to just stay on the system.
Yeah. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. We have to look at it just like I know we're moving. It's just like the data center. I mean, for the person to have this meeting, that person's job was to bring job to the community. Okay. And they were talking about 15 jobs or 69 jobs, and
That's not
most of
even a
those were been
negligible
in.
impact.
Yeah, I mean, with the cost that it's gonna have, and what they were going to do, if if you look at the location of those are located prior to PWC intake system from the Cape Fear River, which we have the problem now with Fuqua, as you know, want to get 6.5 million gallons of water per day and pump it into the Neuse River. So it's sort of frustrating, Madam Water. I think so. That's just my little soapbox on that.
Well, let me say this, Mr. Floyd. Something else that concerned me when I read this article was about this platform, because when you talk about mental health, one of the things that schools are really struggling with is the lack of counselors in the schools. And with this uptick of, remember, we were talking about how things are shifting to these online platforms. When you remove human to human interactions, you remove a layer that is necessary for the building of character in children and in adults. And one of the things that we see is that as we've moved deeper into the world of online life, social media, gaming, all of the things, that we're seeing an uptick in mental health issues. COVID showed us just how much of an effect isolation has on an individual and their mental health. So, Mr. Floyd, one of the things, because of, and I really think this wasn't stated in the article, but I really think that this is happening because of the lack of funding to be able to support these positions. But what they have done is adopted a program called Alongside. And Alongside is a digital mental health platform for secondary students that provides support through a chat box developed by licensed clinicians. I'm going to share the link for our audience on our Facebook page for this alongside. Um, but I have some concerns about that, Mr. Floyd. I have concerns about our kids getting mental health advice, or anybody getting mental health advice from a chat box. I've got serious concerns about that. Now, one of the things that the article did say or did indicate was that in addition, and this is a quote from the article, in addition,
But
CCS offers. Go ahead.
how do you get to the chat box? See, I'm not that. How do you get to
I
it?
guess maybe there's a link that people. I don't.
I understand that part,
Uh
but
huh.
I suppose I don't have a computer.
Oh, these kids have computers. This is for these kids. They've got computers. Most of these kids have cell phones in their hands, so they've got access
But I
to
understand that.
to
But
this
suppose
app.
that, but suppose they well, okay.
Yeah.
But
I'm
sometimes
telling
we
you,
can't
Mister.
keep them online. Sometimes we can't, all the time. You know, sometimes based upon family, I might not be able to pay that cell phone
Well,
bill.
Mr. Floyd, but the reality is now, if you receive SNAP benefits, you can get free internet. So
Okay.
I'm telling you, online is accessible, affordable, all of the things. The problems that existed with the infrastructure of online don't exist anymore. It's just not good for us. So the fact that we've made, and when everybody was pushing online, 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 I was very hesitant because it's not healthy for a community for their life to be online. But nonetheless, I want to share this last point, and then I want to talk about that $600 million. So uh there are programs that offer small group counseling in the schools, again, because I think that the budget does no longer accommodate that one-on-one touch with counselors and students. And those small groups are contained to students who have experienced chronic stress or trauma. Mr. Floyd, this article said our counselors, their work now extends beyond academics into crisis response, safety planning, and mental health support that continues to shape whether students show up at school or not. So Cumberland County, we've got big fish to fry. So not only are our schools failing, but our kids are not even showing up. And maybe the fact that the schools are failing has something to do with why these kids are not showing up. Because one of the reasons that was mentioned was like an apathetic approach to even going to school. But Mr. Floyd, this is problematic. I'm not understanding why anybody thinks that a chat box. I mean, I get it. I understand why they're doing it because they feel like they need to do something. But I just feel like we're digging the hole deeper and deeper. Tell me about that $600 million bond.
Well, the county, well, as you know, the school had looked at a report from a consultant firm, and that consultant firm recommended closing 9 schools and some renovation and building some new schools and those type things. So,
Okay.
so taking that into consideration, it is the responsibility of local government, which means the county, to build schools, not the state. The state may assist, but it's the responsibility. But the county board of commission looked at it. Okay, what we ought to do, and we may want to do a bond in order to address that 600 million. But the
Hmm.
council has already given to the The council has already given, I mean, the commission has already given the school board, I think it's $160 million in order to fund some of their construction.
Okay.
Now, the county also wants to provide $600 million for that project recommendation. And that meeting is also the night we talked about it at 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
There, so and they are going to meet with the Cumberland County delegation on I think in March the 12th to discuss about, and part of that meeting is to get I think it's $15 million from the delegation to assist with the new construction of E. Smith, which consulting firm recommended, I think, $26
Mm-hmm.
million be used. But of the $600 million, I don't think that it includes E. Smith, which had been a year-long project. So for the county, and also along with that, the county is going to get the staff to look at their overall debt. So right now, the county is looking at rebuilding the, the I think it's the Crown Center, and they're also looking at $1.4 billion water system. They're also looking at an aquarium. So the county now is asking the staff about their debt ratio. So
To see
uh,
how much debt they can carry right now.
yeah, and also with the local government there
Mm-hmm.
will approve. So right now, if you look at it, you got to do a lot to sell that to the community when E. Smith is not included into that process to sell
Mm-hmm.
that bond issue. When you just raise many of the property owners, and the lady just mentioned too in the discussion about the Murchison Road improvement, about her taxes increase, where the county also funded, I think, raised many property tax. I think mine went up over $600.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, we're talking about PwC is looking at a 13.45% utility increase, and Duke was just given permission that they can charge for transportation fee as it relates to their energy process. So you got to
Okay.
do a lot to sell to our community. That's $600 million. And then again, on top of that, we have 27 failing schools, and we have 1,200 student drop. So the county commissioner
And I think
got to,
37 of the schools are referenced in that article with the low attendance rates.
yeah, yeah. And so the county got to do a lot to sell this bond issue to the public, and the county has not yet looked at how they are going to do the tax evaluation, whether it's 4 years, 6 years, or 8 years. So on top of this bond issue, you're going to have another tax evaluation. So if you increase my property tax by $600 4 or 6 years down the road, you might have another X amount of dollars increase on top of what the bond issue. But what the public has to realize, if they sit and pass a bond, don't worry about it. It won't go. Once the bond is paid off, your taxes won't drop.
They
Don't even
sure
worry
won't.
about that.
But you know
So
what's
don't.
interesting, Mr. Floyd, and I'm glad you mentioned home property taxes, because remember we talked about the committee that was formed in in
Yes.
in the okay up in Raleigh. So Republican lawmakers in the North Carolina House of Representatives have started exploring new limits on how much local government can grow property tax revenue, arguing the move could rein in rising homeowner tax bills. Now, this newly formed House committee, Mr. Floyd, received recommendations from a group called the Tax Foundation, which urged North Carolina to adopt a levy limit, which is a model used in states such as Washington and New York. Under that approach, property tax rates would automatically adjust downward when property values rise. Local governments would need voter approval to collect revenue above a set cap. Additional spending increases would require a public referendum. Supporters argue that this model shows per capita tax growth and strengthens voter oversight, but there is a political divide, Mr. Floyd, because while the Republicans are saying that, the Democrats have a different they have a different tone. They're saying that this is potential micromanagement. So the Democrats say that they're concerned that the idea could prevent local governments from raising money to build schools and other infrastructure. They say that voters can. This was interesting. I want you to hear this, Mr. Floyd. And I need for our audience to put on your good listening ears and hear what they said. What was said by some of your legislators in Raleigh that are on this board, that are on this committee, that are Democrats, is that you can elect new leaders if you're unhappy with taxes. Mr. Floyd, I wish that that was on a repeating radio ad, on a repeating television ad, so that people understood that the expectation of our elected body in the House on the Democrat side is that if you are unhappy with your taxes, you can elect new leaders. So I just want to let you know that that is exactly what was said in this meeting. And every 2 years, so this is what was said: every 2 years we have elections, sure, but we're not taking the budget to the people, said Representative Brian Turner, Democrat from Buncombe. So I think we need to look at our elected officials that we've elected for the role that they are filling and not micromanage. Representative Jeff Zinger argued that local elected officials have insulated themselves from voters by holding these off year elections. Don't we talk about that all the time, Mr. Floyd? Off
Yes,
year
yes,
elections, so that only a portion of the town or county or town council or county commission is on the ballot at a time. He says that state and local building regulations are also driving up housing costs, which lead to higher property tax valuations and tax bills. What do you think about that before we get out of here?
well, just because I mean, I don't see them really looking at or adjusting too seriously the way the county and city are allowed to make tax adjustments, because each local government set the tax based on what it costs for them to provide the services, and most of these groups are service based driven. So, for instance, the state law requires, I believe, it's either 8 or 10% of whatever the budget that they have in reserve. So, if you have a $300 million budget, you got to have at least between, I say, 28 million to $30 million in reserve what you can have, because you don't know what the future may provide, that you may have emergency. So they may adjust that cap so on to give them a little bit more flexibility. But I don't see them going in there and make some changes that would affect the ability of the municipal county government to operate and carry out their responsibilities. So I think it's a
Okay.
good committee, but I don't see them making drastic change into the tax basis that would
Do you think that
interfere.
that levy system would be a drastic change? Do you think that that would be too drastic?
It's looking at, you know, you got to look at what the R will say in this discussion versus what the D say, if you
The
understand
R's
what I
are
mean.
saying we want to do this. And our
Okay.
R is on this committee. Remember, I told you guys that
Yeah.
Diane Wheatley is on this
Yeah.
committee. So our R is on there.
And also
Um,
Francis Jackson too.
and
She's
one of
on.
our D's is on there, Francis Jackson. So
Yeah.
it is a balanced representation for Cumberland County.
Hmm.
But let Mr. Floyd, what you want to leave our people with?
Well, this is election time.
It's
We have
always
until
election time.
yeah. So we have until February 28th to vote. Go and vote for the person that you like. Don't worry about experiences, because it just like with Cooper. Uh, Cooper is the leading candidate for running for the U.S. Senate. But what we fail to realize, that Cooper must receive 30% of the popular vote not to be in a runoff around May the 12th. But Cooper don't have to worry about the minority community. He got 100. He got 99.9% of minority vote.
That's all you want to leave them with? Because you
That's all
just
I'm gonna
stopped
leave.
right there.
99.9% minority vote, irregardless of what he did in 2020, what he did for Sherry Beasley, what he did for Michael. I forgot the gentleman that ran for Supreme Court, and what he did in the last election as it relates to minority candidates. Don't have to worry about it. You got 99.9% of the minority vote.
Well, I'm the 1/10% whose vote he does not have.
Okay, then. I'm just saying to you, you don't have to worry about
Yeah,
it.
because I don't fool up with
The
that kind of stuff. Now y'all do what y'all
master,
want to do.
the master had told them how they wanted
He
them
said, y'all
to.
better get out there and get it done. Mr.
Yes.
Floyd, I want to tell everybody there's no justice apart from righteousness, no righteousness apart from Jesus. So if you want justice, you got to seek Jesus, because justice is only found in the righteousness that stems from the bloodshed at Calvary. I appreciate, Mr. Floyd, you giving me the opportunity to share this platform with you. I hope that our audience has learned something today. I hope that they will go and take a look at some of the stuff that's been posted. I'll put up the link to what we were talking about, that presentation that the House received. I'll put up the link to the information that they were privy to, so you can take a look at that as well. Mr. Floyd, thanks for that Black History moment. You guys make sure that you like, share, subscribe, follow, tell a friend to tell a friend. And listen, if nobody's told you today, I would love to tell you that I love you, even if I don't like you all the time. Not you, Mr. Floyd. I'm talking to the audience.
It's
I love you
okay.
too, sir.
It's okay.
but
It doesn't.
but even if
It
I
doesn't.
yeah, even no, Mr. Floyd, I like you all the time. I'm not talking to you.
Mhm.
But if nobody has told y'all today, I love you even if I don't like you. So even if you feel like we are at odds, we're not, because I love you. Have a wonderful day, and we'll catch you on the next episode.